Hello and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely, Eure, and today we have a very fun show for you today. We have Ryan Abraham in studio and special guest USC strength and conditioning coach Aaron Ausmus. Aaron, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I got to come out and make the date and make this happen.
Yeah, for sure. We're very excited to have you in. I guess let's start off the show just asking you about being back at USC. What's that like for you?
You know, it's crazy. There was about a 5-year gap in between, and the first day back, it felt like it was a 5-year gap. It was some really crazy energy, and just again seeing a lot of the same people in administration, the athletic trainers, and equipment room. When all those people started coming around and welcoming you back after a day or so, it kind of felt like you never left.
Yeah.
So it was like, the first night home, my wife was like, well, how was it? And I was like, I feel like I've been on a bull ride for 12 hours, yanking left and right and forward and back. And then by day 2 or 3, I was back on a bicycle. So
Yeah.
it's like crazy energy how it leveled back out.
Yeah, that's your third time. You said this the third time's a charm back at USC as an assistant under Chris Carlisle. Then you were the head guy coming over with Lane Kiffin. And then 5 years kind of in like the private sector. And we talked about this off the air, but you live here in Redondo Beach, real close to where the studio is. And I guess you can talk about, was it your plan to come back and coach in college one day?
Everything's opportunities, and third time you really couldn't write this in a fictional book and believe it that you could be back at the same university 3 times. My wife, when we packed the office up in December, I think it was December of 2013, after we went to the Vegas Bowl, we put the stuff in the trunk of her car, and she says, "You're going to be back in here. I promise you this." And I looked at her and I said, "You are crazy." And as soon as this started transpiring, she said, "I told you. I told you."
Yeah.
It is crazy, but everything's timing. I stayed here in Redondo Beach and really put value in planting a place for the boys to grow, and they got here when they were 2 and 4 years old. Now they're 13 and 11.
Yeah.
They've been able to be in the schools and leagues and build friendships, and I put that at the front and foremost.
Yeah. I mean, it was, you can see, there's a flexing picture with you and your son.
Yeah.
Looks like he's lifting and stuff.
Yeah, my younger one's taken a little more to it than the older one.
Okay.
So he got a little bit into it last summer, and then of course through the sports he's kind of faded, but he definitely shows some interest throughout the year sometimes, especially if I have some of the guys over and we're just lifting in the garage.
Yeah. Do you think that helped you, like stepping away from being, working in college with college athletes and kind of working more privately and then coming back?
No doubt. For those 5 years, I actually took one day and I wrote a list of all the places, schools, either pro, high school, or collegiate, that I was able to visit in those 5 years. I think it was almost every Pac-12 school. I think it was except Arizona. But throughout the country in the SEC, I got to spend some time down at LSU with Coach O and them, and actually got to spend a 2-day seminar where they brought me down to work with their staff on things that I had learned in the last, say, 15 years. And what's interesting was it was a full circle moment for me because their strength coach was Tommy Moffitt, who was my strength coach at Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
And so for me to be basically trained by this guy, so I looked to him as a mentor. Now they're inviting me down to train their staff. That was awesome. I mean, and it was just a great experience. But in those 5 years, there was a lot of sharing, which we call fellowship, back and forth, for me to entertain and see a lot of great universities run their strength program. But they're also bringing me in to maybe analyze and see what I was able to maybe give them a nugget or two on maybe how I would do it or some tips. So it was a lot of just fellowship and just continuing education in the field.
Yeah. So you think you've probably changed, like your philosophies might have changed a little bit from when you were a strength coach before to now, just because of that time seeing the other programs?
I don't think my philosophy of getting stronger and things like that and ways to get stronger really changed, but maybe leadership styles, maybe hiring a more dynamic staff, being able to manage them better, things like that. I think it was definitely a huge growing opportunity in those 5 years.
Okay.
And speaking of your staff, do you want to just go through and say who else is on your staff?
Yeah, it's a real exciting staff. I really sat down as soon as I got this opportunity. through those 5 years allowed me to really go out and handpick some guys. So when I was visiting schools, I was also kind of, if you would say, evaluating coaches.
Oh.
And there was guys that I saw on the floor coach and work with athletes and said, wow, that dude's very dynamic. And then, he would be a great guy that I think would be dynamic with a staff if I ever put a staff together. So 2 of the guys I was able to pull, and that was Ty Webb. He was the head guy at Southern University, which was down in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
So when I actually visited LSU, I got to meet him and see him as the head guy at Southern, which is right down the street. And so I got to see him work and see him, be around him and get to know him. And he was just like a guy just right in the top of my head when this opportunity came. Darren Mustin is a former Trojan that was with me in 2013.
Okay.
So since he left here, he was at Army, West Point, then at Nebraska, then just at UMass. So the timing was good, and I called this guy up and like, you want to come back to SC? And he's like, I'm on my way. This guy couldn't, because he was very similar. He only spent 1 season here in 2013. So he was so excited to get here in March, and then, everything turned over in December. So, he had a very short stint as a Trojan. He's a former player at Alabama, was a captain for Nick Saban's team as a linebacker.
Wow.
So, huge football background. Grew up seeing the great SC teams, would stay up late at night on the East Coast and watch SC play back in the 05s, the 06s, 07 years. And so, this guy is just fascinated with SC and knows this place can be really great. Jared Klingenberg was another guy. He was at San Jose State, another guy that I got to kind of evaluate and get to know during those 5 years and see this guy. And then, right now we're lucky with 2 great interns, with Christian Tupou coming back on.
He's a South Bay guy too, right? Maricosta, right? I think.
No, Christian went to Grant High School up in Sacramento.
I'm like
former player, 2011.
Yeah.
Defensive tackle.
Why am I mixing him up with somebody else? Sorry about that. Yeah.
So Christian's been back. Great defensive tackle for us in the 2010, 2011 years. I got to coach him there. He's a lifter of the year, the guy for the program. So it's really good to have a good, just a personality of a Trojan back around the staff. And then Marcus Banks has been with us this summer as an intern. He's actually a GA strength coach down at University of New Orleans. So he's just with us for I think another couple of weeks. But it's been great to work as a staff and to go out and sell a plan really well.
Yeah. One of the things you see if you follow him on Twitter at Aaron_Ausmus, and is that the same on Instagram and stuff too? Or
yes.
You got a lot. He's got like 9,000 followers on Instagram. He's like killing out there. But a lot of cool stuff on the social media side. But one of the things you see a lot is it's not just the players lifting, it's you, your staff. Like, is that sort of like a plan where you're showing like, hey, we're doing this, the players know, okay, the coaches are doing this, we want to make sure we're doing this as well?
Well, I mean, my bottom line is I hire coaches that are truly passionate about being great coaches, but also truly passionate about, the love of lifting and love of strength training. And, we kind of, I guess, let out our steam in the middle of the day after we've coached all morning in the summer. So we get together as a staff, whether it's 11, 12, or 1, we kind of name the time, and we go out and we train together. And we do a lot of the same, nuts and bolts exercises that these players are asked to do. And what's really neat is these players really look up to that. And they come through the weight room, to get a snack or to get a lunch to go or whatever it is, and they see us lifting weights together. So they're seeing like, hey, we're together, we're a great unit together, we train together, we coach hard together, and that's something I think is real important for the athletes to see.
Yeah. I sort of like if you go to the gym and you see like you're taking a class or something and the person isn't in really good shape or they just don't seem to be. I think you'd rather fight, someone that's like in great shape. You're like, oh, I'm going to follow that person.
Right.
It seems like you guys doing that. And can you outlift a bunch of the guys, or it's like?
Yes, yes. I would say most of them.
Really?
Yeah, and which is good because it gives me, day to day, just one-on-one challenges with the guys about, these guys are getting to a good strength level, but sometimes it's good to show them there's a way more to go.
Yeah.
And and they look up and. You're like, wow, coach, how did you get so strong? I'm like, I've got about a 25-year head start on you. When I was lifting weights before you were born, and I'm still doing it at a high level.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because a couple of the linemen came down. We were closing shop yesterday, and it was Didich and Brett. the two centers.
Yeah.
Then they had one of those grip squeeze challenges, and they had the 2.5, which is a pretty high standard to be able to smash and touch it. And they're like, Coach, we got a challenge. No one can do it in the locker room. We're betting you can do it. And they come down and they hand it to me. So I chalked my hand and I crushed it right away for some. They said, I knew he could do it. I knew he could do it. And they handed it to all the other stern staffs. And Tupou he was like a millimeter from crushing it. But all of them were really close. And that's the stuff, again, that the guys are proud that we love to lift and live the lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
Now, since it's a different episode, I didn't start the show with this, but if you guys have questions for Aaron or if you want to call in, you can always do that. I'm monitoring all your comments, but you can also call in at 512-4-TUNNEL. Chris is screening your calls. But Aaron, for people who are maybe noobs when it comes to strength and conditioning, do you want to describe what your responsibility is and do your responsibilities, is it just for the football team or is it for all USC athletics?
Yeah, it's really unique this time. Last time I was here, I was the director of pretty much all 21 sports. Got to manage, it was probably 8 or 9 strength coaches total. In this setting now, I'm the head for football only. I have four assistants that work underneath me they only just cover football as well.
Okay.
So we've kind of gone to a format that a lot of the country's already been doing for a while, and that allows the staff that works with football to really just focus in and hone in, because the demands of strength conditioning for football it's definitely increasing. Things you need to be ready to do for practice, pre-practice, post-practice, game day stuff at the hotel, whether it's some warm-up stuff in the hotel to keep guys active if it's a late night game, some things. So the demands of just little details of work for the strength staff, it's grown a lot. The just get guys strong. It's widened a ton of responsibilities with our guys, and we have to be great mentors to these guys. So outside of the room, we get that 90 minutes or 2 hours per day. We have to be able to find ways to motivate guys outside, whether it's through social media things, through posts, text messages, and things like that, to let them know that, like, hey, we're thinking about you. We're making sure you're doing these things we ask you to do, and it's follow through, and that part is huge now.
Yeah, so that you guys actually get a lot of time with the players, more than like the position coaches and all that kind of stuff. That you get them like 8 hours a week or something like that. But even the off diet, it's still not a lot of time. It's more than those coaches get. But so you have to try to get them to be. Is there a routine they have to follow, like while they're not doing the stuff with you for those 2 hours a day or whatever?
I mean, not really a routine. Obviously, when they're not from us, we want them to go to class and we want them to eat. That's the biggest thing.
Okay.
We want them to try to get them to find value in getting a good night's sleep. So, we're trying to tell them, like, your biggest friend is your pillow in your bed and sleeping. That's going to give you the best bang for your buck of feeling better, being able to get stronger, do better in class, focus, meetings, and play football. So, those are things that we try to educate players on and try to reach them and touch them when they're not in front of us in our care.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's eating, sleep, eating thick. What is it? It's lifting heavy, eating thick.
Eating thick.
One of that. Is that you had that one for a while, or?
Yeah, that's something.
There's a lot of steaks on his Instagram. You can see, like, it's smoking meat.
Yeah, and it's really neat because if you're trying to build a culture, there's more to it than just the guys executing, power cleans or squats or presses, and we're really trying to promote guys to, hey, learn to grill, learn to cook some chicken, pork chops, meat, and learn to cook and be proud of that, because it's going to feed you and help promote, the strength that you're really wanting to do. So it's really been fun for us as, Instagram and social media and all that's so powerful now, and we're seeing our players on weekends and even through the night, they're having little barbecues. They're flipping their grill open, and they're like, look here, coach, and they got like 9 ribeyes on there, and then they scan over here, and there's this big bowl of pasta and things like that. So that for us is telling us, like, they're really buying into the culture of the things we're asking them to do outside of our care.
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. That you mentioned the culture, and that's kind of been a big buzzword around the program. And I think when you talk about culture, it's like the strength and conditioning coach is usually a huge part of that. Mm-hmm. Lynn Swan, when he came out with his statement after the season, he said that, culture was one of the things that they wanted to change. And when we talk about it on the show, like, you want to change culture, like, really the strength and conditioning, that really seems to set the tone. Is that Was that kind of your MO going into this? And did you know, like, hey, we need to change the culture here at USC after a 5-7 season?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go into the job and saying I'm about to change a culture. It was more I'm going to bring a philosophy that I've used before, and I'm going to throw it right in their face and let them start biting.
Okay.
My job, I mean, I figured this out over years. I didn't know this so much as a youngster and coach. I'm a salesman, and my staff, we're salesmen. We're selling strength, and we need buyers.
Yeah.
It's real simple. And I told the staff, I was like, the more we can sell strength and get guys to buy into being strong, the more they'll work, the harder they'll work. They'll be detailed. They'll execute. They'll start taking pride in how well they work. And that's been our biggest thing. Is that's what we've told the guys day one. I told them day one, I'm asking for two things: for you to commit to the program and compete within the program. Commit to the program and compete within the program. And sure enough, every day they are biting it and they are chewing it up and spitting it back out and wanting more.
Yeah.
And we're raising the bar, and that's been our biggest thing. We're trying to make each day better than the day before. And I mean, strength training is a slow process. It's like cooking a bullfrog. You take a bullfrog, you put them in.
I haven't done that.
Yeah, if you want to cook a bullfrog, you put a bullfrog in some lukewarm water, and you slowly turn the heat up. And after a while, he gets cozy in there. And next thing you know, he's cooked.
He doesn't realize
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. You put him in boiling water, he'll jump right out.
Okay.
So it's a slow process. It's like a crock pot. So day by day, we're trying to have a better day. And we're slowly turning up the heat on the guys and watching them compete and watching them make daily wins.
Yeah.
And they're achieving it, and they're really proud right now to chalk their hands and put some sweat drops on the floor.
It seems like that's been the theme. And correct me if I'm wrong, Keely, but a lot of the players talk to the competition part of it, where they're on teams where they might be. You might have like wide receiver with a punter or whatever. Like it's kind of mixed up.
Yeah.
So if there was any kind of click behavior, that seems to be have gone away. Was that kind of part of it? And like it makes this competition where, hey, they want to get personal best and they want to records and things like that. It seems like that's been a common theme from what the players we've talked to.
Yeah, we sat down as a staff and we really tried to learn our personnel when we first got there. So we were going out of our way to try to sit down and eat dinner at night after spring ball practice and get to know the team, find out who they are, where they're from, brothers, sisters, get them to start buying and trusting us. And from doing that, we did some surveys at the end of spring ball and just what we felt were leadership characteristics. We thought what we had gathered from the staff, but we wanted some of the players through a survey to tell us what they thought the leaders were. So we took all that information. We broke the guys into 4 teams. Every team's got the same number we call big men, offensive, defensive linemen, the combo. Your tight end type bodies, your linebacker type bodies, your quarterback type bodies, and then the fast guys.
Okay.
So every team, if we go head-to-head comp, they can't say, well, they won because they have all the strong guys, the big guys, or they have all the fast guys. So we broke it up very evenly. There's about 24 guys on each team. Every team has a couple really dominant, just alpha male personality leaders.
Okay.
And every team we found through that survey, and we placed those on each team, and we're watching those guys become great leaders. We put them in the situation on purpose. So when there is a guy down here that's slacking, how are you going to address this? Because you can't wait until the first game before there's, adversity. It's going to happen. So you got to start putting them in situations throughout the whole summer to let these guys learn to be great leaders. And it's been awesome. It's the lead changes from week to week have changed. I was on top for 2 weeks with the Bullies. I'm the GM of the Bullies.
Okay.
And we're in 4th now.
Wow.
we went from 1st to 4th just like that. And it's been. But when we planned it as a staff, we hoped this would happen. We hope it would do this throughout the whole summer to keep everybody engaged.
So you don't want one team like to dominate the entire time.
Right.
Yeah.
And Pittman's team with the Brick Squad, they jumped out early and had a 2-week first place, and they were just happy and going around and taunting the other teams like, we got this. And then my team for 2 weeks took the lead, and they were just down there, their tails between their legs. And then now they're back on top again.
Okay.
But the points from 1st to 4th, it's close.
Yeah.
And it can change in a matter of a day or two.
So that's what we wanted to ask you what the Bullies were. I think it's on the back of your shirt.
The back of the shirt.
Bullies.
Yeah, the Bullies.
So what are the 4 team names or whatever?
The 4 teams' names are the Brick Squad,
Okay.
The Bullies, Legends, and Nasty.
Nasty. Okay.
And the players got together. Once we put them on the team, we put each coach. We named them the GM of the team, and we let them pick their names, and then from then on, we gave them a criteria of how to earn points or how to lose points throughout the summer, and just let it go. And it's been awesome. And I think the buy-in of just the whole strength training, the plan is stronger because they're competing.
Yeah.
That makes sense. When you came to SC, did you evaluate the team's overall strength and conditioning? Did you find certain weaknesses in the team?
No, because when I got here, we started spring practice. So I'm not in a phase that I can find out how much a guy can lift all of a sudden because he's practicing every other day. So we really just started bringing in just teaching, the techniques of lifts that I want to be good at later, like in this phase of of the summer. So, we just over the 4th of July last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we let them open up a couple sets and just kind of give us some feedback of where they are and just like the major movements like power clean, squat, and press. And it gave us we just wanted were we correct on where we thought their strength levels were? And most guys, we were pretty already accurate of the guesstimate number that we thought they were at. Some guys surprises. There's always going to be people, you put them in a really lit atmosphere.
Yeah.
They get 3 more reps than you kind of penciled them in for.
Wow.
And
Because they're like pumped up.
Yeah, it's just exciting. And then, but you also learn that, the day-to-day is never that same intense atmosphere as, say, a testing time. So you also, if a guy shows out way bigger than you thought, you have to say, there was an intense moment, in a normal day. Is he there every day? Probably not. So let's take even a little bit off that number and give him what we call a training max, which is a more realistic day-to-day max.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're over your skis a little bit. You get a little too pumped up, a little too excited.
Yeah, it happens. I always tell people the best way to take your training or to establish a training max is what could you squat or bench almost any day of the week under any circumstance. Like if you came off a plane and somebody said, "Hey, I need you to bench max right now," or if you had a horrible night's sleep and it's 7 in the morning and say, "What can you squat max or clean max right now?"
Yeah.
That's more your realistic day-to-day max, and that's a good number to use.
There's a lot of different philosophies, I guess, when it comes to strength and conditioning, and it depends on what sport you're playing. I'm sure it's probably different for every position. You must have different regiments for them, but it seems like for your staff, you guys are doing a lot like the squats and the bench press and stuff. And some strength coaches, they're like, "Oh, we don't do that as much." Maybe. What is the philosophy behind doing some of those real power, strength moves, the big muscle stuff?
Well, your multi-joint movements, compound movements, your squats, your presses, your pull-ups, deadlifts, power cleans, they're multi-joint movements. They've been proven since Jaws was a minnow to make people stronger.
Okay.
They've been proven since the test of time, so why would you try to change some of the basic things that have been proven to make people more powerful and stronger? What can happen in a strength program is athletes now that, sometimes they can get bored of just lifting weights. They want to do maybe, hey, when's some of the fun stuff coming out? And that stuff comes it comes, here and there. But you have, as a strength coach, to be good to sell the basics because those are the things. It's like blocking and tackling.
The fundamentals.
You
right?
still have to every play, whether it's whatever it is, whatever scheme, spread, or whatever. You still have to have guys block, and on defense, you still have to have guys who can come up and make a tackle.
Yeah.
So in a strength program, you still have to revolve a program around doing basic movements like squatting and pressing, power clean snatches, pulls, pull-ups, bent over rows, dumbbell presses, and things like that. That has to be a staple in your steak and potatoes on your plate.
Okay.
Now you can trim up some things in the front end, the back end, some of the things that are maybe you say cute or things like that. But we have to be simple, we have to be strong, and we have to be consistent.
Yeah. What's the conditioning part of it? Is there set things you do for that, or does that change or anything?
The conditioning part, it really starts kicking up now between now and camp. In June, we were running primarily 2 days a week. There'd be 2 days we would run after lifting, whereas now we really kind of split the program now. We have our O-line, D-line, tight ends, and linebackers kind of in their group, and then the rest of the team, which is all your fast guys, your quarterbacks, they're on a little bit different regimen.
Okay.
So the big guys are lifting 4 days a week and running 3 days a week but they're still training, doing something 5 days a week.
Okay.
And then the fast guys are lifting 3 days a week, running 3 days a week, but still in a 5-day program.
Okay.
So we got some splitting up. So, but I mean, it's pretty much. I mean, it's still the fast guys are still doing the nuts and bolts training, maybe different sets and reps, maybe different loads, but they might be doing something where they, instead of just squatting, now they're squatting and going out and doing broad jumps on the turf.
Okay.
Because that's something to get them a little more or elastic and explosive.
Okay.
How do you adjust your training schedule based on the season and just year round? Do you dial it back on week 11 versus week 1, or how does that work?
I mean, we dial it up now. We're just trying to get them in as best shape as possible and as strong as possible for camp. Once camp hits, the biggest thing is we still have to continue to lift even as they're enduring practice after practice after practice. The old saying is, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And it's totally true. If you work so hard until August 1 and you just turn guys away the whole time at camp and say, well, let's just practice football. Let's put strength conditioning aside for 3 to 4 weeks. You're going to have a shriveled up team like you have a grape. You're coming in like a grape, and by your first game, you look like a raisin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's what we want to avoid. So, we're already working our fall camp lifting schedule. We're lifting every other day throughout camp. So we're getting 3 days a week of lifting, which is going to keep guys, hanging on to all this work they put in up until now. And there's nothing worse than putting in all this work and then start feeling yourself get weaker.
Yeah.
And so we're going to avoid that. I think the best strength coaches in the world find ways to get guys keep their strength or gain strength as the season goes. And it's a really interesting stat, which again, those couple years away has allowed me to really look at this. You're only in an off-season program 8 weeks in the winter, 8 weeks in the summer. So that's 16 weeks.
Yeah.
If you take the in-season format when you're practicing football and lifting weights, okay, that's 5 weeks of spring ball, okay? We'll say 3 weeks of camp. That's 8 weeks. You take a 14-week football season with a bye or two put in there. That's 22 weeks. You go to a bowl. That's 3 or 4 more weeks. That's 26. So 16 versus 26. I've already done the math here.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to look smart. It's it's 2/3 versus 1/3.
Yeah.
It's 65%, 35%. So if you're in a in-season format as a strength coach, 65% of the year, why wouldn't you become good at getting guys keeping strength or getting stronger during that phase?
There's no way you could do that in a third of the season and keep it for the rest of the season, like a third of the time, and the whole season be able to do that.
So that's something that I've always been interested in. Again, I'm a salesman. I'm trying to sell strength. I'm looking for buyers. So this is when we get to that point, it's going to be pivotal for us to continue to keep guys training hard. Now, will we pull sets and reps? Going back to your question, will you pull sets and reps or maybe loads off? Absolutely. We can't expect them to lift at a rate they're lifting right now, and then practice later in the afternoon or play a game coming up Saturday.
Okay.
So
Some people have made the correlation between strength and conditioning and a plague of injuries that might happen to a team. I know correlation doesn't equal causation, but what do you think the relation is between strength and conditioning and maybe preventing injuries or causing injuries?
Well, I mean, I will always say this: if you're a strength coach that pats yourself on the back, let's say you go through a season and you had very few or minor injuries where players, especially key players, lost time, and you say, well, it's because they're in a great strength and conditioning program. You also have to be ready to accept that if things do go bad, you have to accept that too. So it's a really fine line, and I've always said, if you have a year where there wasn't a lot of, say, major injuries where you lose players to a surgery and stuff, it's a lucky thing. I've done a strength program where we're doing a strength program. Last time I was here, I think the 2011 season, we came out really good. We had a pretty depleted roster. We ran the month of November, 4-0 in November. We came out. We didn't have a lot of people hurt. Well, the next year we did, and I didn't change the strength program. We applied the same strength program, but it's just it's a lot of luck and draw. Luck. But I will say that when you go into camp, how guys can run day after day and avoid those soft tissue injuries like a groin pull, a hamstring pull, and they're losing time because of those things. Maybe you could have prepared differently, or maybe it comes down to maybe you didn't educate on, hydration after practice as good as you could. Just even eating and going back to the sleep thing, it all really plays in. So the better we can get guys to take care of themselves, just a lifestyle, the more you're going to help in that area.
If there's a rash of like hamstring injuries or something like you said, is there something like, okay, hey, we're going to change this or tweak this or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I go back again. I learned from history is I want to say is 2011 or I think maybe the 2012 season. We went into camp and after like a week, we had like 5 or 6 guys missing practice for hamstring strains.
Okay,
and we looked back and said, we gave those guys about 6 days off from the last strength training of summer to the first day of camp. So what happened in those 6 days? We don't know. So the next year we said, well, let's change one thing. Let's give them like a weekend before camp off, but let's get them back and train them right up until they report. And it was night and day because we controlled that dead period.
Yeah.
They were with us. We were still training and running some. They weren't, in air conditioning, maybe just laying around so much and resting. So some people think they need to rest for camp. And then all of a sudden they go out there and they hit a 2.5 hour practice and they've been laying around for 6 days.
Yeah.
Worst thing in the world you can do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worst thing in the world. So we want to keep guys active now, right up until the report, and really push the fluids, the hydration, and things like that, and keep them around us as much as possible. And it cut down considerably the next year when we tried that. It was night and day.
Yeah.
Interesting. How much do you work with? I know you mentioned it, but nutrition. Do you work with the nutritionist? How does that work?
Well, right now we lost Andrea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She left in April, and we are in the process of hiring that replacement. So it's a process. You got to find the right person, and it's a personality job that it's a tough job, because you're always trying to have food available and snacks and things, and you're always trying to work with some picky eaters, that you think you're doing great, but now a third of your team you find out really doesn't like that, and they would prefer this, and so it's a tough job, and I think it's very similar to my job. Is like you got to get buy-in, and you got to get a group of guys that trust you and actually respects and listens to you. And it's a big commitment job. I mean, you're on the road with us in the hotels and before practice, after practice. I mean, it's a hustle job. It's someone that's really committed. So we're in the process of finding that. In the meantime, again, as strength staff, we're not registered dietitians, so we can't sit and do a lot of this advice other than, hey, we know guys that need to gain weight. We definitely are on them about eating.
Yeah.
And we're just like, hey, right now it's quantity. You have to feed. A snack, any snack right now for you is a good snack. And getting them to learn that.
Is that part of the thing where you want to get a nutritionist that would work well with what your philosophies are too? Like, does it have to work together? Where if you get someone that's like, gluten-free vegan shakes is all we're going to have, and you're like, no, we want some steaks.
Right.
So you have to have someone that you kind of has similar philosophies, I guess.
Definitely. I mean, it would be like hiring it'd be like hiring a spread offensive coordinator, but then somehow they make him hire a power offensive line coach.
Yeah.
It's not going to work well together because they don't believe in the same philosophies.
Okay.
So again, that's why it's we haven't rushed to just put someone in this office, because we're trying to find the right fit for these positions. That's
a good kind of segue. Well, I don't know if you have one, Keely, but the philosophies, when Clay Helton brings you in and they bring in a new offensive coordinator, so like the offense is going to change, how closely do you have to work with Clay Helton? Is it kind of like a lot of his vision for what the strength program should be, or is it all up to you? And then how does that change when you have like a high tempo sort of, this air raid type of offense that you're going to be working with?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best thing that's going to get the guys ready for that is practice. I mean, there's no doubt. Obviously, it's a high tempo offense. I've gotten to know Graham pretty well since we've, I got here just a little bit after he did. So, we can't just go in and like totally modify a conditioning program because now it's up tempo.
Okay.
There's basic running, there's general fitness running. Obviously, you need to do a lot of change of direction. So we're still doing those things. In our mind, we're trying to give them a great car, a Ferrari that's got a souped up motor in it. It's got great tires and great brakes on it. It can accelerate and stop on a dime and change direction. Because the practices and the things he's going to do is going to slowly start putting them in that conditioning factor of that,
Gotcha.
of his philosophy and the quick tempo. So, I just don't want to complicate too much. Obviously, the receivers and the running backs and the offensive line, they're getting in situations where they got to turn reps and work fast, and we know we can get that. But camp and football and preparation week to week is going to put them in the shape to go play.
Yeah. So you give them the Ferrari and let them drive it however they want. Like here.
Yeah, just don't wreck it. Don't wreck it.
No ACLs, none of that stuff.
So some of our fans who watch the show kind of make the comparison between the Pac-12 schools and the SEC schools and how different those players look. Do you see a difference? And is it just they're built different out there, or is it in the way that they train?
I mean, I would say definitely like your defensive line and your linebacker. I've coached two places in the SEC, at Ole Miss and at Tennessee, and I would think a lot of times you can bring in recruiting a little bit bigger, stronger guy out of the South. There's more guys to recruit like those body types. I think we had a player visit in summer, and he was from Mississippi for one of the camps, and he walked down the weight room, and I'm like, who is that? It's like,
I want to coach him.
Yeah, he's like, bring him here to us, And just a very big, physical, thick body type. I would say in a lot of the other positions, it's not as much difference. But obviously, we're trying to get these guys, at a weight and a size and a strength level as high as possible. And obviously, coaching again, like I said, about 4 years total in the SEC. I've kept track of numbers and stats of guys that we've had on our teams. So we see what the average D lineman was power cleaning, say it like at year 3 at Ole Miss or that first year at Tennessee, the squat and the things. And, it's fun to look at stats. And a lot of that's going to vary year to year on the age of your team. If you've got a big group of class that's juniors and seniors, probably going to be a pretty strong team.
Yeah.
If you look at our senior class, there's not a lot of seniors out there.
No,
There's the NFL scouts came and and I just got here, so I didn't know, Jordan Sefa from Michael Pittman Barrett. I just got here, so they're coming in. Tell me about this guy. I'm like, I don't even know who this is, but I did know the list was short.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're like, well, that's it. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to talk about the other 10 seniors? And they're like, no, there's only
It's like 8
there's
guys.
like 8. Yeah. I'm like, well, I've never seen this. So obviously we have a young team. That's exciting because this young team is getting stronger. They're buying in, and it will become a very strong team in the future.
You weren't here last year, but do you ever get a player that's like a workout fiend, like a Porter Gustin?
Strength training. Strength training.
So, I'm sorry, strength training. Hashtag strength
We
training.
don't use the word workout.
Sorry about
Come
that.
on. Come on,
He's
Ryan.
corrected all of us on
You
social
work
media.
out.
Yes, but I'll do it.
We strength train.
Okay, good. Sounds good.
Someone commented either Ryan shrunk or Aaron is very big.
He's very big. He's a Division I athlete. I played club volleyball at USC, and I'm 48 years old. Actually, we're very close to
I threw a bowling ball.
Yeah, he threw a bowling ball through the air.
Yeah.
And he's very strong at doing that. Now I forget what I was. Oh, so like a guy like Porter Gustin, if someone comes in, they have a lot. He has his own regimen, his own philosophies. Do you incorporate that? Is that a good thing for you, or do you kind of how does that work?
It's
maybe that's not uncommon.
Sometimes it's good and bad.
Okay.
A lot of times, maybe they've had 3 to 4 years of structure where someone has really trained them, and that's great. Sometimes they're a little bit slower to come in and buy into maybe some of the things you're doing because it's different.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're breaking them back down and reteaching the clean and the squat, and they're kind of like, come on.
I do it this way.
Like,
or whatever.
or I'm already good at this.
Yeah.
We're like, great, but there's a few things that you are missing barely, and we're going to get this worked out, on some of the techniques. So, again, them having that drive is awesome.
Yeah.
That's that internal motivation that they have. That's probably a player for the next 3 to 4 years. You're probably not going to have to motivate a lot. They have that already. so you can maybe coach them on a higher technical level to keep them engaged.
Okay. It might be similar to like quarterbacks have their own quarterback coaches outside, but then you come into the program. You know, we see that a lot. So
right.
it was like, but yeah, it seems like there wouldn't be a need. He was almost like a Pied Piper last year where he had a bunch of guys following him. It doesn't seem like there's a need for that now. Not that you're comparing the two things, but it just seems like, hey, you have them all buying it. This is the system you want them to run. Right. Who would you say is like the big lifter? I mean, I know Brett Nealon's a pretty big guy, and he's done some stuff, but
Brett's doing well. Justin Dedich, he's definitely a weight room warhorse guy. You know, he's coming down. He asks a lot of questions. He wants to do extra work. He's a strong guy. He's 300 pounds now. You know, Dedich, Jay Tefele is just a natural. I mean, he's a beast.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, I probably have to keep him more contained to not let him be so beastly, because you don't want to get a guy like that hurt. So we have to okay, Jay, let's not squat this much. Let's pull one plate off, and let's just slow the form down a little bit. And he's like, "Got you, coach." It's always good to see those gung ho guys. And then a guy like Brandon Keely he's coming around. His body's changing. He's down to about 317 now.
Oh, okay.
He's enjoying the process. I was really hard on him early, but now we got a great bond going. He trusts. He's got the loyalty now. That again, that's just something we're trying to get with all the players, is that trust and loyalty. So, again, Jordan Iosefa, Chase Williams is having a phenomenal summer. I mean, I could go down the list.
Yeah, some of the skill guys, they post pictures and they're like, man, these guys are pretty ripped right now.
Yeah, they're proud of their strength, and that's what we're
the fast guys. I don't want to say skill. Yeah, you say fast.
But that's something we try.
Fast
to
guys
doing
strength training.
Yeah, you want to do this at a level where you start becoming proud of it.
Yeah.
And they're flexing in their photos, and that's that culture we want to see. Guys are proud of their strength.
Yeah. Do we have any questions, Keely? Should we get to?
We do. I actually have a question. Has anyone surprised you as far as potential or the progress they've made since you came to USC?
I mean, it's really neat to see like the young guys, like a Drake Jackson, coming in. When you meet him for the first time and you're thinking he's probably a junior, senior on his way out, and you find out he's just turning 18 years old in like April, and he gets there and here's a body, he's super athletic and can run down and do a backflip, and at 278, 80 pounds. And
is he up to that now?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it just phenomenal in his work ethic and drive, and he wants to be great. And he sees when he sees himself squat and then sees like a Jay Tefele, and he's going, oh, wow, I've got a long way to go. So, I mean, he's a guy that's just working extremely hard. Just pops to my mind. I mean, there's, again, several down the list. Michael Pittman's doing some awesome stuff. He's a grinder. He's in there 15 minutes early before every group, and just he loves the process. He's a pro.
Yeah.
In our mind, we said we're trying to get guys to be pros. How they come in the building, approach, get in there early. If there is an issue, I got a tight calf. You've taken care of those things ahead of time. Michael Pittman is setting an example of he's a pro and how he approaches it, and it's rubbing off on the other guys.
Real quick, John Houston, is he 225-ish now? Do you want to see him bigger?
Yeah, we're trying to get a little bit more. He is 225. He's excited about it, and I tell him it's not enough because the camp's going to melt him down a little bit. So in my mind, if I can get him used to running around right now, let's say 228 and 230, maybe even 232, as we condition between now and August 1, we got about 20 more days. If I can get him used to running around at that weight, and let's say he does trim down as camp goes to 224, 225, but he's going to have those pads on and things. At least he's gotten used to running at a higher weight and conditioning at that level. So when he puts that 8-10 pounds of helmet, shoulder pads, and all this on, it's not something foreign to him.
Gotcha.
So we have a question from Brandon S. on YouTube. He says, do you feel like the guys, aka the players, seem more confident on the field and in the weight room since you first started in the spring?
Yeah, it's been a program. I haven't seen a culture push this fast in 4 months. Like I said, I feel almost every day has gotten better than the day before. We really talk a lot about having intent, coming in the weight room with intent, and that's why I use the word strength training, because I want them to know that this is a service, this is a purposeful thing that we're going to do. we eliminated the word workout because we said that's a casual word. That's like saying I'm going to go exercise.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what I do.
Exactly. So we identified our service with our players as strength training, and then coming in, we tell them life's too short to be small and weak.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the first shirts I got when I was around 15. It was an old, I think it was like turquoise, and on the back it said, life is too short to be small and weak. Well, I kept that shirt with me forever, and it had these cutoff sleeves. And I would wear it when I was a shot putter at Tennessee. And my strength coach, Moffitt, is like, where in the world did you get this shirt? He goes, I love it, but that's so old school, you know. And it was this ugly blue, this horrible, you know, and it had these frayed sleeves. And I wish I still had it. But that's always been my motto. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and now we have it on the back of our strength training shirts as a staff. And the players love it. And, you know, they'll be in each other's face. And they'll be like, you know, come on, you got to get this set because, you know, life's too short to be small and weak. So they're really, again, the culture, they're buying into it. It feels like it's pushing forward each day. Their excitement, their intent to come in and train at a high level is there. And that's, and again, I always remind them back to March 4th, ask for two things, commit to the program and compete. And if they'll do that, everything will take care of itself.
We got a Periscope one real quick. Rourke Moody, what is the most important max weight lift you look for in recruits? I don't know if you get involved in that stuff. Is there something like, that guy can?
It's. I mean, for me, you know, it's hard on recruits because if you can't really see the lift, maybe on a video or something, it's like, how well did they do it? And, you know, I love to see a recruit be able to power clean really well.
Okay.
If I'm able to see that it's from the floor without straps and the technique and his footwork is, you know, his footwork is good and he has a good rack position, then wow, that's impressive. That's really good to see. If you don't see the proof, then, you know, it's really hard to say like what's a good lift for a recruit. But, you know, we love to see, or we love when recruits come in and they start talking to us about cleans and about squats, and we start saying, well, what's your max? And if they start giving us a number that is in the ballpark that we figure is real.
Yeah.
You know, we start like, okay, tell me a little bit more about it. You know, okay, tell me about your squat. If it's some crazy number, then we probably know it's probably, you know, with straps from the hang, some bounce, you know, catching it here, the feet out about, you know, 9 feet wide, you know, and it's just, again, it's hard to, you know, really, unless you see it, you know, proof like an Instagram video or a Twitter or whatever. It's kind of like a wise tale or a big fish story. You know,
Right. Makes sense.
Eddie on Facebook wants to know, when it comes to specific position groups, do you think about the moves that they do, like footwork for linemen or something like that, in your workouts?
Strength training.
Sorry. Strength training.
I mean, we definitely with our conditioning, as far as the lifts, I mean, the clean is going to benefit the lineman the exact same way it's going to benefit the receiver. It's a multi-joint explosive exercise. Now, we go condition, our fast guys, our wide receivers, defensive backs, and things like that, they're going to do definitely a different change of drill or change of direction drill circuit than our linemen. Our linemen, we're going to get them more where they have to push objects and things like that, short distances, quick turnover. We change the loads day to day or week to week. Sometimes they push 5 yards, sometimes they push 15 yards, sometimes they push high angle, low angle, things like that. So I would say from position to position, it changes the most in the type of running, the amount of running, and whether they're pushing an object or not.
Okay.
Gerald on Facebook wants to know, what type of music do you guys strength train with?
Perfect. We mix it up. You know, Darren, one of my assistants, does an awesome job. He makes some different playlists. You know, we actually rely on my two boys. They're 13 and 11. So we're riding in the car like, Dad, can I borrow your phone? I'm like, all right, and they'll play a song. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I was like, is that popular right now? They're like, oh, yeah, this song is huge. So I'll pin it, and then I'll bring it in, and then Darren will start taking these songs that I learned from my boys. And then we also bring back a lot of the older stuff and things like Kid Rock, and we mix definitely in some metal and some things because we want a variety in there that just keeps the vibe at a high level. And like today, we had no music. The music today was bumper plates hitting the ground, guys yelling, all right, and the chains working on the single leg squats, and the punch pad's going off. It sounded like dynamite. And we trained for an hour and 20 minutes. And when we brought them up, I was like, hey, did you guys notice the music we played today? And they all started looking around. I'm like, the music was the bumper plates hitting the ground and this and this and this. And they're like, yeah, this is what it's about.
Nice.
And they went the whole session for an hour and 20 and didn't even mention, why aren't we playing music? Because there was so much music of their work happening.
Wow, interesting. So that was a plan. You guys like mixed.
Not
that in,
really,
or-
because we knew we had some technical things in the front that we wanted to have no music and really make sure they understood it. But the guys immediately got in the groove of lifting, and they were so into it. We were like, why go over and turn it on?
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
there was plan for music. We had a playlist ready, didn't use it.
Oh, okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
How do you keep track of a 80, 100-man roster and all the weights that they're doing? How do you keep that details?
With a staff. Each player has a card. We usually do what we call a 2-week block. We put 2 weeks worth of work on the same card. It's a front and back card. So obviously with those, like we said, we have a number of those basic lifts, a squat, a clean, a press, a front squat. We have an estimated max for those guys. Well, we put the workload that we're trying to train at a percentage, and it gives them the exact weight to put on the card. So what we try to do is put those cards at the racks, and we put one strength coach usually in charge of about 4 racks. Well, there's usually 3 to 4 guys per rack, and that's going to put you, that strength coach is responsible anywhere from probably from 12 to 16 guys.
Oh, okay.
And we pin the cards on the rack, so it's really easy, visible for the players to just kind of follow it. They don't have to hold it in their hand, put it on the ground, pick it back up. So it puts it in a convenient place. And, the coach, I always tell the coaches, like, I want you to, when we're done, to be able to sit down and say, I know this. All these 12 to 16 people did every set and rep by monitoring. Something we do is we put a very high caliber accountability type leader type person in that rack, the player.
So they're going to keep.
And you almost have like an assistant coach.
Okay.
Because one, he's a good lifter. That's technically really good. He can fix guys' technique because he's that good, and he holds that rack very accountable. And it's really neat, and that's where that leadership and that accountability builds, because we tell them, like, we have your back. If you need to tell a guy he missed a rep and he needs to get it done, it's like we will spot you and support you. Like, you become that leader, and that's how this whole process starts. It's a day-by-day process, and, your leadership does not start in the locker room the day before the first game where some guy gives some, let's go do this, This starts back in June in a rack.
Yeah.
The leadership starts in a rack, and it's really fun to see. And really something I challenge the staff is it's like cooking. So if you take a stove, it has
Cooking analogies.
Here we
That's
go.
my favorite. That's
Here we
my
go.
favorite.
He always does cooking
Yeah.
analogies.
So to me, strength coaching is like cooking. So if you had 4 eyes on a stove, you have, let's say, 4 pots going, and you had something going in each pot, some different dish. To us, that's that 4 pods. That's those 4 racks that you're responsible for. Well, you start seeing that this rack's cooking a little faster, meaning their tempo is a little faster. They're getting maybe a little ahead of these other 3. So as a coach, you have to learn to start saying, okay, either do I turn the heat up more on these and challenge them to work faster, or maybe it's easier to turn the heat down on this one. Tell them, hey, go grab a water break because you're working a little bit too fast. Let's slow you down and put you on the pace of these other entrees that are cooking.
Okay.
So I tell coaches, great coaches can manage that stove. And as you get better as a coach, you don't manage 4, you can learn to manage 8. And also maybe you can learn to manage 12. And that's when you're a young coach, you can manage 1.
Okay.
You learn to be able to coach 1 rack and 1 platform, 4 guys, and all of a sudden you're overwhelmed with 4 guys. And all of a sudden, with doing this in time, it's like cooking. You first learn to cook like some scrambled eggs, and you're so excited you cook scrambled eggs, right? You're like, wow. And then somebody's like, well, that's easy, Why don't you cook scrambled eggs, bacon, and put some biscuits in the oven, and make it all come out at the same time.
Biscuits, Tennessee.
Yeah. Make it all come out at the same time. So, that's more of a challenge. Then you start to get overwhelmed. Wow, I got 3 things going on at the same time. So as a young coach, you learn to coach 1 rack, and all of a sudden now you can coach 2, and all of a sudden you're up to 4 and 8, and that just comes in time. And putting yourselves in those situations and being able to feel great about doing it.
Yeah.
When it comes to those second assistant coaches, you said, are those players that you put in those positions that you empower, do you feel like you have a good eye for scouting who can be those guys? You mentioned how you surveyed the team. Did that align with what you guessed?
No, it didn't. We sat on the staff, and we thought we had them picked out. The survey from the team told us a little different, so it made us dive in a little bit more. So we brought what we felt was the guys we felt were the leaders, and we brought those guys in. and talk to them one-on-one a lot. I mean, a lot during that discretionary time in May because we had a lot of time. They were finishing up finals. They were always dropping in the weight room. They're just killing time. So we bring them in. Hey, come in, let's talk. So, if we felt a guy was a leader and then the survey was supporting it as a leader, we're like, cool, bonus, we got it right.
Yeah.
But there was some where we didn't think a guy was a leader at all. But the survey said he was.
Interesting.
And that's when we bring in the other guy with us. Like, why is this happening? Tell me. Why does the team think he's a leader? Because we don't think he's a leader. Well, let me tell you, he's played, and they respect him. And all of a sudden, we're like, okay, cool. And then we would bring in the guy that they thought and say, the team thinks you're a leader. We don't think you are. I mean,
wow.
yeah. And like
You're on notice.
Yeah. like what's going on here? We're getting a mixed message,
Interesting.
And then we had some guys that the survey told us that they were a great leader, but the survey also said they need to work a lot harder. So we had mixed message from the team.
Okay.
So we would bring in those guys. So you know what? We got a mixed message on. We need to know what's going on. I can show you 18 people have voted that you have leadership skills and they would follow you. I said, but you got 9 people says you need to commit to the program harder.
Interesting.
Wow.
Let's iron this out right here, right now. And it was really good for us, and it helped us on those teams.
Oh.
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask, do you feel like that was effective? Do you see change after those talks?
I mean, they definitely are like taken back, like, whoa, like, this is, I'm getting,
Yeah.
I'm
To
getting,
get feedback from you is one thing. From your peers, it's something
Right.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. It definitely helped us, like I said, make those teams as even as possible. Which after now coming into 6 weeks, like I said, the pole positions have changed almost every week, which is ideal, exactly the way we want it. And we put a couple of the we would say guys that do need to commit to the program more, because the survey told us that, and we thought that too. And those were like those were the ones that there were double kills.
Okay.
We felt that the team told us, and we placed those guys on each team because we said, hey, you as the leaders, you got to find ways to make these guys calm and come on to the party a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, that we don't have time to wait around for them.
Yeah.
So.
I think we have one of your former athletes wrote in on. He says, "AA from Periscope. AA. Ever implement fan bike sprints to knock over the weight plates anymore?" Nico B from Golf 05. So, do you know who that is? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I figured it was one of your former.
Yeah,
athletes.
I think that was. I worked with the golf team when I was an assistant here
Okay.
years ago when I was under Chris Carlisle, and we had a little bike sprint circuit with the golf team at the end with those Airdyne bikes that produced the deal, and
the fan goes crazy when you're going nuts.
Yeah. So we had some competitions where the fastest guy would knock over the plate because he pushed the most air, and he would win the rep. And then, it was a reward system.
Okay.
And, but it brought buy-in for guys to work really hard because they're trying, again, back to commit and compete.
Yeah.
You put them in competitive situations, you're going to get the effort you want.
He remembered it. That was 14 years ago or something. So.
There you have it. So we actually have a caller who's waited pretty patiently on the line. Let's go to her. I think her name is Julianne. Hello, you're on the line.
Hi there, this is Julianne from Covina. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for calling in.
I just was curious, Coach, I'd like to first say thank you for all that you're sharing on social media. It's been really exciting to the fans as well to see the players buy in and all that you guys are doing. So thanks for doing that. That's been kind of a new culture thing too, so we appreciate that. I was just curious, I've heard a lot of, back to basics and a lot of what you've been talking about with your philosophy. Do you see a difference in how you approach training, say, college level or even D1 versus D2 or D3 players, and how you bring that to this back to basics mentality?
I mean, for me, I would take this same philosophy I'm doing now. I would go right into high school and do it the same way. Again, I'm selling strength. I'm looking for buyers, and it's a basic coaching philosophy that I built back in 2008. I want to be strong in 4 areas. I want to I want the players to feel I have faith in my program. So how do we have faith? We come out day to day and we talk about the same movements day after day and how they're going to benefit and how they're going to become stronger. So as the players start doing it, they start getting faith in us as their coaches.
Yeah.
The second pillar, and that's that loyalty and trust we're trying to get. So that's our first pillar. Our second pillar is passion. I want the players to feel, not only me, but the staff we come to work every day, that we don't want to be anywhere in the world anywhere in the world, Six Flags, Disneyland, at a pool, on a lake, behind a jet ski, than coaching them every day.
Yeah.
And these guys feel that we love our job, we love coaching them, and we care about coming in and putting the most energetic staff on the floor. Well, in turn, we're wanting our players to train with passion. So it's a two-way street. And I tell our coaches every day, don't expect them to lift at a high level with us if we don't come out and present it to them first.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing we talk about every day before we take the floor with our players or before we take the field or the turf. The third one is the mentor. We talked about that earlier. Mentoring is a 24/7 opportunity. If you think you can only affect these players' lives in that 90 minutes and the other the other 22 hours and 30 minutes of the day, you're just a hands-off person, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you got opportunities to sit and have lunch, breakfast, dinner with these, talk about, eat a snack in a hallway. They come down, sit them down, talk, get in the office, put your arm around them, walk to the parking lot, get to know them. That's the mentoring is huge. The mentoring for me has been the part that I think I've grown the most in. And now with social media platforms and things like that, it's made my job even easier because they follow you. Now you put out some great education or great motivational things, and they just see it automatically.
away, yeah.
As they're maybe going to bed at 10 o'clock, they're like, all right, cool, I'm going to go to sleep. And coach talked about importance of sleep, whatever it is. And then the last one is the integrity part of the program. To me, that's your rules and your policies that you set down, and you have to uphold those every day. To me, that's like house cleaning. Every day you probably need to take out your garbage at your house, maybe load the dishwasher, make your bed. Those are daily things. There's weekly things like mop the floor or clean do a load of laundry. There's things you do once a month, like maybe scrub the the bathtub, things like that. For ours, we have daily things in our program: being on time, be dressed appropriately, shoes tied. The squat technique that we've taught, uphold the standard day to day, the cleans and all those things. So the integrity part of our program is big. So we come down with faith, passion, mentor, and integrity. If we do those really well, those 4 parts, we will uphold a roof with these pillars that is unified and it starts to build. If one pillar starts leaning out of place, we start to crumble.
Yeah.
So that's our approach.
Awesome.
That makes sense. Thanks, Julianne, for the call. We
Thanks,
appreciate
Julianne.
it.
We're at the top of that. We should probably wrap this up. He's got a family and stuff to get to.
Yes,
We thought it was going to be like half an hour. This kind of goes fast. So sorry we kept you this long and stuff. But
it was really interesting, though. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for all the fans that were writing in the questions and stuff. And thank you for coming out here.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it.
For
Thanks.
sure.
Great team. We're looking forward to all the social media posts heading into fall camp and stuff. But
Yep, and good luck this season.
Yeah, awesome. Fight on.
thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Alrighty, guys, we'll be back. We're going on a little break. Ryan is going on vacation, so we might not be here for the next 2 shows. But we'll be back. Fall camp is starting soon, so make sure you stay tuned for our next shows. But that's Ryan. That's Aaron. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all another time. Bye.
Thank you.